Good evening. So today we are going to deal with reading part and welcome again to Edu Skills OET Made Easy. Our mission is to make you fall in love with OET. If you are watching this on YouTube, kindly consider subscribing the channel, give us a thumbs up if you like our work, and please share the link to your contacts so that we reach out to maximum number of OET aspirants, especially those who are financially struggling. The 15th question, what information can be found in the first paragraph? Tell me the heading words, shout out and type in
Information found.
information and first paragraph. That's mainly for beginners. Beginners should know. As soon as you get material, you have to mark the paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, option A, reference to some recent findings relating to heart disease.
Findings.
What is the heading word?
Recent findings.
Okay, recent findings. Then by option B, indication of the greatest risk factor associated with heart disease.
Greater
Risk
factor or greatest risk factor. Okay. Option C, mention of a misconception about the chief causes of heart disease.
Chief causes.
Yeah. Okay. Option D, figures showing the country with the highest mortality rate from heart disease.
Highest mortality rate.
Mortality rate is. Okay, so the concepts are these: findings, factors, causes, mortality rate, right?
Yes,
okay.
Father.
Yes, Father.
Yeah. Heart disease is the greatest killer in the developed world today, currently accounting for 30% of all deaths in Australia. A concept which is familiar to us all is that traditional risk factors such as smoking, obesity, and genetic makeup increase the risk of heart disease. However, it's now becoming apparent that another factor is at play, a developmental programming that is predetermined before birth, not only by our genes, but also by their interaction with the quality of our prenatal environment. Okay. Come on now. Do you find something to be highlighted immediately?
However, Father, contrast word.
Okay. If there is a contrast word, as you skim through, read fast, skim through, you have to highlight that contrast word. And the Edu Skills strategy says, if there is a contrast word, you can just ignore what comes before it, and the answer will be definitely after the contrast word. Okay, from here, you have to find out if there is some connection with any of these answer options. Is it about are they speaking about recent findings, risk factors, chief causes, mortality rate? Anyhow, if you have a notebook, please take the notebook and a pen or pencil with you.
Yes,
Now, heart disease is the greatest killer in the developed world today, is the topic sentence. Main sentence is known as the topic sentence, and the main gist of the paragraph will be there. Now write heart disease on your notebook. Heart disease, heading. That is the main concept. Heart disease. Below that, you write risk factors. Risk factors. In front of risk factors, you can put a semicolon. Then traditional risk factors. Traditional risk factors. What are the traditional risk factors?
Smoking, obesity.
In front of traditional risk factors, write one below one. First one, smoking. Second one, obesity. Third one, genetic makeup. How beautiful the paragraph you see to understand. However, I always repeatedly told you, whenever there is a contrast word, whatever comes before the contrast word is not relevant for your answer. So you can just ignore the first part, whatever we have highlighted now, just to understand the concept I have highlighted. When they said heart disease is the greatest killer, they are giving what are the traditional risk factors for heart disease. Okay, then after that, they are saying, however, it's now becoming apparent that another factor is at play. Now, after however, is there some word reference to some recent findings relating to the heart disease, indications of the greatest risk factor? Do they speak about greatest risk factor?
No, Father.
No, they are speaking about heart disease is the greatest killer. Okay, they are not speaking about the greatest risk factor. A mention of the misconception about chief causes of heart disease. Do they speak anything about chief causes?
No, Father.
No, they are just mentioning traditional causes and modern new causes, old causes and new causes that are found out. Figures showing the country with the highest mortality rate from the heart disease. It shows one country, but does it speak anything highest? Does it compare with anything?
No.
No, they don't compare at all. Only one country is mentioned, so you can't say highest. It's 30%. Okay, so ultimately, what is the answer?
A. Option A.
Option.
Yeah. See, now is
Recent. Synonyms.
now synonym is
Recent.
recent. Yes. Any other synonyms or synonymous language? Becoming apparent. Findings.
Finding related.
Findings relating. Okay, findings. And that another factor. And again, I told you when there is a sequential expression, it's also an indication that will be the answer. Sequential expression, first one, second one, third one, first one, another factor, third factor. All these are sequential expressions. Then after hyphen, you know, whatever comes is just explaining that particular thing, what is said now. See, another factor at play. What factor? That's being explained now. A developmental programming that is predetermined before birth, not only by our genes, but also by their interaction with the quality of a parent prenatal environment. See here, before birth. Before birth. Whereas in the here, if you want, mortality rate, what when it happens? What does it indicate?
After
Is it
birth.
before birth, after birth?
After
So
birth.
in that way also you can eliminate that, right? The text is speaking about before birth, prenatal, and this one is speaking after birth. And greatest risk factor, no, only greatest killer is mentioned. No risk, greatest or great risk factor, only factor, risk factors, traditional and new. And whenever they speak about traditional, you know, the contrast will happen now. Now means recent or new or modern. So you have to keep out all these words. You have to keep in our diary of vocabs. You write traditional, is synonym is new or now or modern. Okay, or recent findings, anything you can say. So you can write here, recent findings, traditional, now. Tradition is opposite, recent and now is same. Hope that is clear. So it looks like this. Beautiful. When the writer uses the word caused in the second paragraph, she is referring to. It's actually no need of hedging words here. The hedging word is highlighted. What type of question is this?
Lexical type question.
Lexical question.
Lexical type of questions. The principle, the clue or the strategy is that you have to immediately go to the highlighted word in the text. You have it here, right? Highlighted
Yes,
word. You first step, go to the highlighted word in the text. Step 2, see whether the highlighted word is the subject or object of that particular sentence. Step 3, if the highlighted word is subject of the sentence, go to the immediately previous sentence where you will have the answer. And if the highlighted word is the object of the sentence, go to the next sentence or the remaining part of the text, means immediately after the highlighted word. Okay, now write down, they come at a cost. Just write down on your notebook fast. They come at a cost. Okay? They come at a cost, this sentence. Okay. Hope you have written down. They come at a cost. So here, what is they?
They subject further.
Yeah. Subject is they. And verb?
Come.
Come. Come is the verb. And at a cost is?
Adjectives.
Object. Okay. Subject, verb, object. Cost is object. So as per our principle, where will be the answer?
Next to the highlighted word. After the
Yeah,
word.
next to. So let's just highlight the next half of the sentence, maybe immediately after this, and check whether that has got similarity with any of the
Reduced
options.
growth.
Now, option A is overwhelming evidence, B, placental insufficiency, C, viable pregnancy, D, reduced growth.
D is answer.
See, biological trade-off is reduced growth. So easy. Biological trade-off means what you suffer or what is the cost. Okay. So you need not go anywhere else. Lexical questions from 2 texts, you have 4 questions which you can finish within a minute so that you save a lot of time for other questions. So cost is object. So the answer is after the highlighted word. Is that clear?
Yes, Father.
Yes,
So
Father.
Yes, Father,
in
clear.
short, the sweet lexical questions. Find the highlighted word in the question stem. This first line of the question is known as the question stem, this part. Okay. And second step, find the highlighted word in the text. As of now, this cost is that word. Okay. Cost is the word. Okay. Then find whether the highlighted word is the subject or the object of the sentence. Sentence given in the test. If the subject of the sentence is highlighted, you immediately go to the previous sentence and read, you will have the answer there. If the object of the sentence is highlighted, go to the next sentence, immediately there will be answer. How nice and sweet. If you know these tips, strategies, that's called smart work. Give me some smileys, some emojis to know that you are with me. So, 17th question. In the third paragraph, what does the author suggest about the work of the international research community on this subject? So, what is the edging word in the question stem?
Third paragraph, suggest.
Okay. Beginners, definitely third paragraph. Later on, you need not think of those third paragraph once you are competent. Author suggests, that's an opinion, okay?
International research community.
Yeah, this is very, very important. Research community. International research community on this subject, okay? On a particular subject, what they are mentioning here. First option, their focus has been too narrow.
Too narrow.
Too narrow or narrow, whatever, okay. Second, studies flawed. Maybe flawed or flawed. Maybe flawed also you can say, no problem. Okay. Then there is nothing original about their nothing original. They were overly keen to seize on a particular idea. Particular idea. Okay. Now let's just go to it. Okay. Whatever it is, the idea that a future susceptibility to disease in later life could be programmed by the conditions in the womb has been taken up vigorously by the international research community. International research community, this is the subject taken by them for study, with considerable efforts concentrating on nutrient supply across the placenta as a risk factor. But that is just part of the story. How much oxygen is available to the fetus is also a determinant of growth and of the risk of adult disease. Dr. Dino Ghesani's research group of, do we need Dr. Dino Ghesani and other Cambridge University?
No,
need,
Father.
Father.
No.
We are not bothered about them. We are bothered about
International
International
research
research community.
do you find anything that need to be
Yes,
highlighted?
Father. Contrast
What?
word.
Yeah, there is a contrast word. If there is a contrast word, he is our friend. He is the greatest person who will help us and tell us answer is here, answer is here. So many questions, you see, with this strategy. But that is just, let's see whether it is right. That is just part of the story. Fetus is also a determinant of growth and of the risk of adult disease. Do you have any similarity? That is just part of the story. If you have heard that story, what is the answer?
A.
Further. Too narrow. The focus has been too narrow.
Yeah, focus has been too narrow. That is a clear paraphrasing of that is just part of the story. And some of their studies may be flawed. They don't say whether the study is flawed, right or wrong. They have not mentioned, right?
Yes,
They have not mentioned evaluated the study at all. There is no evaluation of the study here. But after the contrast word, immediately they say that is just part of the story. Means the focus has been too narrow. One part of the body, one part of the story. The name, then the contrast word, the clues here. Going to number 18. What was the aim of the study described in the fourth paragraph? Aim of the study, right? Fourth paragraph, definitely it is there. So option A, to compare neonatal records between the UK and Bolivia. Option B, to assess the relative significance of two risk factors for newborns.
Risk factors.
Risk factors. Yeah, two risk factors or risk factors. To find a link between birth weight and predisposition to heart disease. Link between birth weight and heart disease. So when you read, you have to see whether they are speaking about a link, or are they comparing between UK and Bolivia, or are they speaking about two factors, risk factors. D, option D, to determine the likelihood of high altitude babies being carried to full term. Yes?
High altitude babies.
High altitude babies. So we are experts in finding the keywords now.
Gisani team studied birth weight records from healthy term pregnancies in two Bolivian cities at obstetric hospitals and clinics, selectively attended by women from either higher and high income or low income backgrounds. Bolivia lies at the heart of the South America, split by Andean Cordillera into areas of high altitude to the west and areas at the sea level to the east. As the country extended into the Amazon basin at the 400-meter and almost 4,000-meter above sea level, respectively. The Bolivian cities of Santa Cruz and La Paz are striking examples of this difference. Pregnancies at high altitude are subjected to a lower partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere compared with this at sea level. Women living at high altitude in La Paz are more likely to give birth to underweight babies than women living in Santa Cruz. But this is a result of a reduced oxygen in the womb or poor nutritional status.
So, any idea?
It
This
is only
Chinese
two
team,
Bolivian cities. They are not comparing UK and Bolivia, so we can eliminate.
yeah, it's two Bolivian cities. So nothing about UK is mentioned here. Maybe OET aspirants are interested about the UK. That's why they wanted to confuse you. Okay? Okay, cool. So this is eliminated. It speaks only about the two Bolivian cities. They don't speak anything about the UK. C, to find a link between birth weight and predisposition to heart disease. Do they mention anything about heart disease?
No,
Nothing is mentioned
this
about
is
heart disease. Then option D, to determine the
also,
likelihood of high altitude babies being carried to full term.
that is also not mentioned. They have mentioned underweight babies, not about full term pregnancies.
Yeah, underweight babies. Yeah, the study is about underweight babies, and they are not speaking about full term. Let's see now where will be the answer. Now, Gusani's team studied birth weight records from healthy terms pregnancies in two Bolivian cities, where two obstetric hospitals and clinics selectively attended by women from either high income or low income backgrounds. So, the controlling idea is high income and low income backwards. People are selected from high income or low income backward, two backgrounds. Okay. Bolivia lies at the heart of the South America, and we don't require all these details as per the options we have read. Where Bolivia is and all those things are not required for us. We are bothered about because they don't ask in any of the four options where Bolivia is situated or how big it is, how small it is. At 400 meter and almost 4,000 meter above sea level respectively. Okay, one it has 400 meter, other one is at 4,000 meter from the sea level. Means one is near to the sea level, one is very high. The Bolivian cities of Santa Cruz and La Plaza are striking examples of this difference. Okay, pregnancies at high altitude are subject to a lower partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere compared with those at sea level. Women living at high altitude in La Paz are more likely to give birth to underweight babies than women living in Santa Cruz. But is this a result of reduced oxygen in
Poor
the
nutrition.
womb or poor nutritional status? What are they?
Two risk
Two
factors.
risk
Two
factors.
risk factors,
Yeah,
Father.
two risk
Reduce-
factors. As medical professionals, you know, these are the two
Risk
risk
factors.
factors where you will have undergrowth babies, right? Underweight
Risk factor.
babies, reduced oxygen, and poor nutritional status. Maybe mother will not eat so many things, thinking that child may not like it. Okay, so maybe nutritional status will be very poor. So these are the two factors. Is that clear? To assess the relative significance of two factors for newborns. So B is the answer. Now someone is asking B, option B is the answer. Okay, 19. What assumption was proved wrong by the results of this study? What is a hedging word?
Assumption.
Assumption. Some assumption was proved by the study. Option A, lower income mothers generally give birth to lower weight babies. Lower income.
Lower income mothers, lower weight babies.
So just to remember, you can lower income, lower weight. Just to remember, this is hedging words, keywords are highlighted, key phrases are highlighted. Just to remember. No money means no weight. Okay, understand that way. No money in mummy's pocket, no weight. Okay. Option B, a baby born at high altitude will typically weigh less than one born at sea level. High
Less than
altitude, less weight.
Less.
And option C, levels of oxygen have a greater impact on birth weight than nutritional status.
greater impact.
Levels of oxygen is more important than, you can in the notebook, you can write oxygen have a greater impact. Oxygen, which nutritional status is lesser and oxygen is greater impact. You can put that mark. Okay. Levels of oxygen have a greater impact on birth weight than nutritional status. Means you give maximum oxygen, non-nutrition. You will have baby which is weighing 18 kgs. Okay. Understood the meaning? Levels of oxygen will help the baby to have weight, needed weight, than the nutritional status. Secondary importance to nutrition. That's what that option says. I did not say. Option D. There is a correlation between prenatal oxygen levels and predisposition to heart disease. Correlation between prenatal oxygen levels and heart disease. To understand,
Yes, Father.
prenatal oxygen levels and heart disease.
What Cusians found was high altitude babies showed a pronounced reduction in birth weight compared with low altitude babies, even in cases of high maternal nutritional status. Babies born in low income mothers at sea level also showed a reduction in birth weight, but the effect of undernutrition was not as pronounced as the effect of high altitude on birth weight. Clearly, fetal oxygenation was a more important determinant of fetal growth within these communities. Remarkably, although one might assume that babies born to mothers of low socioeconomic status at high altitude would show the greatest reduction in birth weight, these babies were actually heavier than babies born to high income mothers at high altitude. It turns out that the difference lies in ancestry.
Okay. Now, any word that need to be highlighted?
Contrast word, Father.
Which one?
But the fifth
Where is-
sentence there is Fifth
Remarkable.
sentence, Father. But the effect of
One,
undernutrition.
2, 3, 4, 5. But,
Yes.
okay. But,
There is also
Father,
although also.
remarkably. Remarkably
okay.
also.
Remarkably also is there. Remarkably means
Although.
when your teacher teaches, this is very, very important. Mark it. Remarkably. They are highlighting and saying remarkably. And again, there is one more contrast word. I said when there are two contrast words, when there are two contrast words, normally answer will be after the second contrast word. Hope you remember. There were
Yes, Father.
questions when there were questions saying that there are two contrast words. What should we do? So normally, if there are two contrast words, generally after definitely it is not before the first contrast word. Okay, and normally it is after the second contrast word. Now assume. One might assume. Assume. Is there something in the question stem?
Assumption.
Assumption.
Yeah. Although one might assume, and if a sentence begins with although, if there is a complex sentence, the answer will be in the independent clause. Answer will be in the
Independent clause.
independent clause. Although one might assume that babies born to mothers of low socioeconomic status at high altitude would show the greatest reduction in the birth weight, comma. That is the first part is the dependent clause.
Dependent clause.
Okay. Then there will not be answer in the dependent clause. So you can just ignore and go to the independent clause. These babies were actually heavier than babies born to high-income mothers. Rich mothers. These babies were, although one might assume that babies born to mothers of low socioeconomic status means mothers who have less money, the kids of the poor people will have less weight. That is the assumption. Assumption means presumption, not fact. These babies were actually heavier than the babies born to high-income mothers, those who had enough money. These weighed more than babies born to rich mothers. So poor mothers' babies or rich mothers' baby, which was heavier?
Poor mothers' babies are heavier.
Yeah, poor mothers. So do you have any option? A baby born at high altitude will typically weigh less than one born at
A, Father. A.
lower income mothers generally give birth to lower weight babies. But here they are saying what? One might assume, you may think, I will read it this way. Shanmuga may think that babies born to mothers of low socioeconomic status at high altitude would show the greatest reduction in birth weight. They will have lower weight. You may assume. I striked it out. That is in the dependent clause. Answer will never be in the dependent clause. What you are saying now is given in the dependent clause. That is also assumption. Here they are saying assumption proved wrong.
Opposite.
Did you get me? Now imagine, although Sheetal is saying Miami is a very lazy girl, Miami scored A grade in all the 4 subtests of OET. Which is important?
Miami scored A grade.
A grade in 4, yeah. That comes after the comma in the independent clause. Do you get me?
Yes, Father.
Yeah. So here, this cannot be. Lower income mothers generally give birth to lower weight babies. Here they are saying, though you think mothers of low socioeconomic status at high altitude would show the greatest reduction in birth weight. No. They are saying you may think, but in fact, these babies were actually heavier than babies of rich mothers. So, do the poor mothers generally give birth to poor, lower weight babies?
No, Father.
No.
Huh?
No.
Yes. Yes or no? I am confusing you. It doesn't mean that is not the answer.
No, Father.
No, Father.
That
Now,
is the assumption, Father. It's not like that, Father.
That's not fact.
Now you see, I said in the normal case, this will not be important. And if you remember, I have explained several times about not true questions. whatever is wrong will be the right. When they ask what is not true as per this paragraph, do you remember some of those questions?
Yes, Father.
Here they are asking what assumption was proved wrong. Assumption, what was the assumption? Poor mothers will have less weight babies, lower weight babies. But this study showed poor mothers have higher weight babies. So what was the assumption? Normally people used to think poor mothers will have lower weight babies. That was the assumption. Although one might assume that babies born of mothers of low socio-economic status at a high altitude would show the greatest reduction in birth weight, these babies were actually heavier than babies born to high-income mothers at a high altitude. The fact found out in this study is that lower-income mothers have higher weight babies. So which assumption, presumption, speculation was proved wrong?
Lower income mothers.
So they are asking which assumption proved wrong, which is right. They are not asking which fact is right. This fact is not right. This is the assumption which is proved wrong. That is the answer.
Yes, Father.
You have to be very cautious about such negative questions. Which assumption was proved wrong? But the assumption was, people thought, the presumption, speculation was that lower income mothers will have low weight babies. But that was disproved by this particular study. Is that cool?
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father.
Yeah, option B, a baby born at high altitude will typically weigh less than one born at sea level. Now you see, what Gusani found was that the high altitude babies showed a pronounced reduction in birth weight compared with low altitude babies, even in cases of high maternal nutritional status. So here they are saying a baby born at high altitude will typically weigh less than one born at sea level. Means those who are born at high altitude will weigh less. Correct, no? High altitude will have pronounced reduction in weight.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father. That's correct.
But that was not an assumption. I am trying to make you understand the difference. That was not, the paragraph is not saying that was an assumption. That was found. Means established fact. That was
Fact.
established fact. But the question is not asking about established fact. They are asking what assumption, uha, was proved wrong. So you should be very careful when there is a negative question. Okay. And see, levels of oxygen have a greater impact on birth weight than nutritional status does. They are not comparing levels of oxygen and nutrition. Do they compare here anything?
No, Father.
No, they never mention where it is given. There is a correlation between prenatal oxygen levels and predisposition to heart disease. Do they speak anything about heart disease here?
No, Father.
Anywhere heart disease is mentioned?
No.
No. So maybe right as per the medical knowledge, but they are asking what is given in this particular paragraph. Actually, A is
Wrong.
given. Actually, normal cases, that will not be, the answer in the dependent clause will not be right. But here they are asking the opposite. What assumption was proved wrong? What is given in the dependent clause will be wrong, not the fact. But what is given in the independent clause will be the fact. Although she was willing to marry that particular guy, she refused to marry, she refused to marry because he was a drug addict. He was a drug addict. What is important? What is given in the... Yeah, that is the independent clause. Okay, that is cool. Type cool if you're okay. Question number 20. Have a glance, read yourself, okay? The question, answer options, I'm giving you 1 minute. Okay, time up. Somebody wants to say which is the answer option?
For the D is answer.
Why?
A option has got absolute all, so I eliminated. And B
Okay.
also has got absolute all, eliminated. And C is
Yeah.
not meant.
Not mentioned. Now,
Yes.
if there are beginners, all, and only, no one, everyone, those are the absolutes. Absolutes, if they happen, normally that can be immediately eliminated if there is absolute expression. But if the statement says not all socioeconomic groups, that is not all. Not all means some. So beware of that. Here also you have at all levels. If there is an absolute, immediately you can eliminate. So you are left with only two options. So you have to read and understand. The lower social economic groups of Lapus are almost entirely made up of Amerindians and ancient ethnic group with a history in the Bolivian highlands spanning a couple of millennia. And in the C option, what is that?
2000 years.
2000
Time
years.
expression.
Are they same?
No further.
No further.
2000. Millennia means 1000. A couple of millennia means it can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So spanning a couple of the millennia means from 1000 to 5000 or 6000 or 7000. So there itself, from the very first sentence, you can eliminate third option. Okay? Most residents have a shared. On the other hand, what is that?
Sequential.
Sequential
Other
expression further.
Sequential expression, next idea, which means whenever there is another thing, another idea, sequential expression, answer will definitely happen after the sequential expression, not before that. Okay, that is the principle. Keep writing down these principles. Remember as you scan through and get these ideas. On the other hand, individuals of higher socioeconomic status represent a largely European and North American admixture, relative newcomers to high altitude. And newcomers, there is a scale, newcomers to high altitude. Okay, higher socioeconomic status means rich people are the newcomers. They have no ancestry. They are not there from millennia. They are the rich people are the newcomers. They have no ancestry over there. It seems therefore that ancestry linked to prolonged high altitude residence confers protection against reduced atmospheric oxygen. Poorer residents have a genetic advantage over those with higher incomes. See, here prolonged high altitude residence means living long time at high altitude. Who lived long time? Rich or the poor?
Poor.
See, the lower socio-economic groups were there from a couple of millennia. They were living there. Whereas individuals of higher socio-economic status are relatively newcomers to high altitude. Tell me whether poor people have a longer ancestry or higher rich people. Now write down this, the lower socio-economic groups. Just write down on your notebooks. An ancient ethnic group with a, just write this, the lower socio-economic groups have a history spanning a couple of millennia. The lower socio-economic groups, you can write in the poorer residents in bracket. The lower socio-economic groups, synonymous expression is poorer residents, have a history spanning a couple of millennia. They have thousands of years of history in that land. Second line, next line. On the other hand, individuals of higher socio-economic status. Individuals of higher socio-economic status in brackets, higher incomes. Means rich, are relatively newcomers to this place. And the last sentence says, it seems therefore that an ancestry linked to prolonged high altitude residence, ancestry linked to a prolonged high altitude residence, ancestry linked to ancestry, long ancestry means staying long in high altitude places, confers protection against reduced atmospheric oxygen, means they do not have the problem of reduced oxygen. They have high oxygen. So what is the meaning? Who stayed more longer in high altitude? Poorer people or rich people?
Poorer people.
People.
Yeah. So that is what D says, no? Poor residents have a genetic advantage over those with higher incomes. That's what last sentence says. Those with ancestry, long ancestry, prolonged stay in high altitude has a protection against reduced oxygen.
Reduced atmospheric oxygen.
Means they enjoy a lot of oxygen. They enjoy a lot of oxygen. So D is the answer. See, this is how. On the other hand, newcomers, couple of millennia, 1,000 years, when there are some numbers, years, you have to focus on that. Text 7, question 21. The purpose of the information in the 6th paragraph is to provide the purpose. What is the purpose? Option A, an alternative approach to a puzzle. Puzzle is solved. A confirmation of a hypothesis. Hypothesis is confirmed. Then an explanation for a finding.
Finding.
Okay. Finding. And a solution to a problem. These are the concept-based edging words, but differentiating edging words are
Solution.
solution,
Explanation.
explanation,
Confirmation.
confirmation,
Alternative approach.
alternative approach. Now let's read. The lower socioeconomic groups of Lapas are almost entirely made up of Aymara Indians, an ancient ethnic group with a history in the Bolivian highlands spanning a couple of millennia. On the other hand, same paragraph, okay. On the other hand, individuals of higher social economic status represent largely European and North American admixture, relative newcomers to high altitude. It seems, therefore, that an ancestry linked to prolonged high altitude residence confers protection against reduced atmospheric oxygen. Do they present any problem here? If the problem is given, it will be in the beginning, as I told you, in the first sentence. Is there a problem given in the first sentence?
No, Father.
No, they are just making a statement. So no problem given. So solution problem is not possible. And alternative approach to a puzzle, are there two approaches given or any puzzle mentioned?
No.
No. Same paragraph, two questions, one paragraph. It becomes very easier for you. A confirmation of a hypothesis, like assumption, you remember previous question, assumption. Is there a confirmation about a hypothesis? Other one was disproving the hypothesis. Here they are saying, is it a confirmation of a hypothesis, confirmation of a assumption? Do they mention any assumptions here? Hypothesis?
No.
Hypothesis means assumption.
No.
So it is an explanation for a finding. See, they are explaining why the poorer people or the people having a prolonged stay in high altitude, they will be more healthy because they have affluent of oxygen, enough oxygen. It seems, therefore, that an ancestry linked to prolonged high altitude residence confers protection against reduced atmospheric oxygen. Means they have no reduced oxygen, they have high level of oxygen. So it's an explanation of the finding. The whole paragraph is an explanation. At the end, they are concluding saying, okay, therefore, you explain something and then you conclude, right? Saying, therefore, we say OET aspirants are smart students. Before that, you have to explain why, right?
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father.
Thank you. Okay. So this is clear, right? Answer is
Yes, Father, clear.
C.
Yes, Father.
Answer is C, an explanation for your finding. I have made this slide separately because in the YouTube comment space, some were asking what was the answer. Like now, that's why I'm showing in a separate slide with no other highlights. This is the answer. The last one, you have stamina?
Yes, Father.
Yes. Now, 22nd. What advantage of the research involving hen eggs is mentioned in the final paragraph? Advantage.
Final paragraph.
Then involving hen eggs also is important, maybe, because you should know the subject, right? Yes. Then for beginners, when you are experts like this, you need not use this. Otherwise, final paragraph means, yeah, you can highlight final paragraph also, beginners, just to make sure that it's delaying. Yeah. Option A, the availability of supplies, the simplicity of the procedure, the reliability of the data obtained, the speed with which results are seen. The availability of supplies. Then simplicity of procedure. Advantage is the simplicity of procedure, reliability of the data obtained, or data is the concept. The speed with which results are seen. Results. And differentiating edging words are availability, other one is simplicity, then reliability. These are the differentiating edging words or keywords. First part we marked is concept based. Speed. Gisani's group also discovered that they can replicate the findings observed in Andean pregnancies in hen eggs. Fertilized eggs from Bolivian birds native to sea level show growth restriction when incubated at high altitude, whereas eggs from birds that are native to high altitude show a smaller growth restriction. Moving fertilized eggs from hens native to high altitude down to sea level not only restored growth, but the embryos were actually larger than sea level embryos incubated at sea level. The researchers could thereby demonstrate something that only generations of migration in human populations would reveal. Generations of migration in human population would reveal. What more, when looking for early markers of cardiovascular disease, the researchers discovered that growth restriction at a high altitude was indeed linked with the cardiovascular defects shown by an increase in the thickness of the walls of the chick heart and aorta. This suggests the possibility of halting the development of heart disease at its very origin, bringing preventive medicine back into the womb. So, any idea? Is there a contrast word?
But.
So answer must be after the contrast word. But the embryos were actually larger than sea level embryos incubated at sea level. The researchers could thereby demonstrate something that only generations of migration in human populations would reveal. What is the meaning of this? The researchers could thereby demonstrate something that could, maybe in human beings, in hen eggs, they could do within no time. But in humans, if this has to be treated, it will take generations. If the research starts at Shanmuga's time, Shanmuga's daughters' sons' time, the results will be demonstrated. Does it show anything? Tell you anything?
The speed.
Data further.
Yeah, the speed. The speed, exactly. Means they are saying in hen eggs, they could find the result within no time. Whereas if it is done with, this research is done with human beings, generations, it will take generations. Is that clear?
Yes,
And they don't speak anything about supplies, right? And simplicity of the procedure. They did not speak anything about the procedure. What was the procedure? How was it done? Reliability of the data obtained. They are not saying whether data obtained is okay or not okay. They are saying this is faster. They got it very fast. That sentence clearly tells you the researchers could thereby demonstrate something that only generations of migration in human populations would reveal. Here, what was that? The moving fertilized eggs from hens native to high altitude down to sea level. Means the whole thing was moving fertilized egg from high altitude to low altitude. Whereas in human beings, it is from generation to generation. See the difference? Moving high altitude, if you have to bring the eggs from high altitude to low altitude, means 4,000 meter high to 400 meter high, it may take 6 hours. Whereas the other one is humans, it will take generations.
Yes, Father.
The speed with which results are seen. Beautiful. Okay, that is cool. See now, contrast words. Some are asking what are the contrast words. Although expresses a surprising contrast. Although, but is another contrast word. Expresses an expected contrast. It is expected, but expresses. The other one was surprising. But when you say but, when you have to use but, it is expected. Okay? Whereas other one is surprising, although. However, shows a contrast between two different or unexpected ideas or situations and is often used to introduce a second point that contradicts the first point. However, in spite of is another contrast word used to show contrast and is placed in front of a noun or pronoun. In spite of. Despite used to show contrast and is placed in front of a noun or pronoun. Though, similar to although, but it's very informal. Though is informal, although is academic usage. Yet means but or nevertheless and represents an idea that contrasts with an idea that has already been mentioned. Nevertheless, or a contrast conjunction that can be placed at the beginning of a sentence and is stronger and more formal than however. And whereas, a subordinate conjunction that turns a complete sentence into a dependent clause. So these are the contrast words, although, but, however, in spite of, despite, though, yet, nevertheless, whereas. In the reading or listening, whenever there is a contrast word, the answer will appear after the contrast word. So when you skim read, when you just skim and go fast reading, you identify if there is a contrast word, then don't look at the previous part. You focus on the portion after the contrast. So that's the end of it. I hope this is cool.